$1,265,000. Only $96,000 of it was ever deposited. The other $1,169,000? No salary paid it. Nobody gifted it. Nobody earned it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly who put it there. Picture two people on the same income. One waits until investing finally feels worth it. $1,000 a month to spare, a bonus, a clean start in January. The other moves $200 on a random Tuesday and feels almost embarrassed by how small it is. 30 years later, they're living two different lives, and the difference isn't income. It gets decided around month 8, and I'll show you the exact week it happens. This is the 40-year story of that single transfer, what it does to an account, and what it quietly does to the person making it. I publish a money video like this every week. If that's something you want, now's a good time to subscribe. So, you have $200, not $10,000, not a windfall from a relative you barely knew, not a bonus that landed at the right time. 200, the amount that disappears over a weekend without leaving a name behind, the amount that feels too small to matter and too tight to spare, somehow both at once. And this is where it starts. Not with a strategy, not with a brokerage account you've researched for 6 months. With $200 and a decision that feels almost too small for the size of what you're trying to build. Because here's the part nobody tells you. Everyone assumes investing pays you money first. It doesn't. For years, the deposits buy shares. But the repetition buys something else. Proof. Proof that you're the kind of person who feeds the machine. And while you're building that, a second contributor quietly joins your account. Time. The only investor who never misses a month, never panics, never sells the bottom. Remember the $1,169,000 nobody earned from the start of this video? That's who put it there. Not luck, not income. Time multiplied by your refusal to stop. And time doesn't work alone. Underneath it, there's a second layer. Every dollar of growth starts producing its own growth. Returns stacking on returns. Still not finished. Third layer. In the months the market falls, your same 200 quietly buys more shares at lower prices. The bad months get recycled into fuel. And a fourth. The whole thing accelerates. Slowly at first, invisibly at first, then so fast that in the final decade, the account adds more in 1 year than you added in 5. Now be honest about something. When you open your banking app, what do you feel? A small wave of dread or nothing at all because you've stopped looking? That feeling is data. It's telling you that right now, money is something that happens to you. This whole video is about the slow, unglamorous process of reversing that. And it begins with a click that will feel like absolutely nothing. You click confirm. Nothing happens. No fireworks, no welcome to your new life. The account shows $200. The market slips 0.4%, and your $200 becomes $199.20. You check it 3 times before bed, as if staring could change it. This is the beginning, and it looks nothing like what you imagined. The account just sits there. You feed it $200 every month like a plant you're not sure is alive. Some months the number creeps up. Some months it sags. The machine accepts your money without acknowledgement. 6 months in, you've put in $1,200. The balance reads $1,150. The market drifted down and took $50 of yours with it. $1,150 is not a number that changes your life. It's not a number you tell people about. It exists quietly in an app you check less than you used to, because the checking stopped producing any feeling worth seeking. This is the part nobody talks about, because there's nothing to talk about. The first 6 months of investing $200 a month is not a story. It's a habit. And habits, before they produce results, produce only themselves. And this is the week I promised you at the start. Month 8. Nothing dramatic happens. That's exactly the danger. 1 month things are tight, and the transfer just doesn't go out. Then another month. The balance sits frozen at $1,150 for 4 months, untouched. You stop thinking about it. Then you stop logging in. And a year later, the habit is gone. The money's still sitting there, too small to ever become anything, because the deposits were the engine, and the engine stopped. The version of you that exits here isn't lazy. It's human. The gap between knowing what to do and doing it while nothing rewards you, that's where most people quietly leave. You don't exit. You're in a gym where the mirrors don't show progress yet, and you show up anyway. 12 months in, $2,400 contributed, balance $2,520. The market cooperated moderately, and you gained $120 beyond what you put in. $120. You could earn that in an afternoon of overtime. You're smart enough to know it's not impressive and disciplined enough to stay anyway. Because here's what the balance doesn't show. You had $200, 12 separate times. That could have been a dinner. And 12 separate times it became a contribution. The foundation isn't the $2,520. The foundation is the repetition. You also discovered something this year that almost nobody tests. Your life did not deteriorate without the 200. The month never collapsed. The things you were sure you'd need it for, mostly never materialized. And when they did, the money appeared from somewhere else. That 200 was never actually load-bearing in your budget. It just felt like it was. Most people protect that feeling for decades without ever checking it. You checked it 12 times, and it was wrong 12 times. That discovery is worth more than the $120 the market paid you. 26 months in, you've contributed $5,200, and the account reads $5,750. The number is starting to carry weight. Not life-changing weight, but the shape of something that didn't exist before. And in year 2, something shifts that no chart will ever show. You stop checking out of anxiety and start checking out of curiosity. You stop monitoring for disaster and start watching for growth. The investor who checks from fear and the investor who checks from curiosity are holding the exact same fund, but they are not having the same experience, and when the market drops, they will not make the same decision. The market drops. Of course it does. 16% over 9 weeks. Starting in a month you'd prefer to forget for unrelated reasons. You watch $920 evaporate. The account that read $5,750 reads $4,830. You feel it somewhere specific, not quite your stomach, not quite your chest, and you sit with it. You don't sell. The transfer goes out on schedule because the schedule doesn't negotiate with market conditions. And here's the quiet, counterintuitive part. That same $200 now buys more shares than it did 3 months ago because everything is on sale. You don't celebrate. You just continue. 8 months later, the market has recovered and your account stands at $8,100. The shares you bought in the dark weeks are now worth more than you paid for them. The discipline of the down months compounded quietly. It does this every time. You will forget it every time, and the forgetting is fine as long as the behavior doesn't change. Year 3 closes. $7,200 contributed, $8,400 in the account, $1,200 of it money you never deposited. The gap between what you put in and what you have is widening. And from here, it only widens faster. 5 years, 60 transfers. You're 30 years old. Contributions $12,000, balance $15,500, at an average annual return of around 10%. Roughly what the S&P 500 has averaged historically. Not guaranteed, not a promise. Markets never move in a straight line. But historically, that kind of return has been real. $15,500 means $3,500 you never earned at any job. It also means you now hold more than most people have in savings, not because you out-earned them, but because you started a specific habit at a specific time and carried it through 12 months of nothing, a correction that felt personal, and a stretch in year 4 where you seriously considered pausing and didn't. Now, what $15,500 is not. It's not retirement. It's not a down payment on its own, and it's not freedom. People will tell you it's nothing in the context of long-term wealth, and they'll be technically correct and completely wrong about what it means, because $15,500 was never the number. It's the proof. Proof that you can build something from almost nothing, without a windfall, without a high income, without a perfect plan. Proof that the machine works if you feed it, and that you are the kind of person who feeds it. That identity is what carries forward. Something else has been growing alongside the account, and it has nothing to do with returns. Your relationship with money is different, not because you have more, but because you see it differently. You know which spending produces something, and which produces only the moment. And no, you're not living on rice and discipline. You went on the trip. You bought the thing, just inside a structure where the 200 stopped being a sacrifice and became non-negotiable. Your patience changed, too. A red number on a Tuesday is no longer information about the future. It's information about today. And today passes, and the future doesn't care how Tuesday felt. And then there's the harder part nobody warns you about, the distance. A quiet separation opens between you and the people in your life who aren't building anything. Not because you're better, because your priorities now show up in small daily decisions, and small decisions accumulate into a different kind of life. Sometimes it feels like a loneliness you can't quite name. You're moving in a direction not everyone around you is moving, slowly enough that nobody notices, including you, until you look back and see how far you've traveled. 10 years. You're 35. Contributions $24,000. Balance around $41,000. $17,000 of it money you never deposited. In the last year alone, the portfolio returned roughly $3,600 without a single extra hour of effort from you. Run that as a monthly number. You put in $200 a month, and the account now adds about $300 a month on its own. Your money makes more than you give it. This is the page in every finance book that never quite lands until you watch it happen in your own account. Quick question before the next decade. What's your version of too small to matter? The amount you keep not starting with? Write it in the comments. The most liked answer becomes the next video. 20 years. 45 years old. You've contributed $48,000, and the balance is around $152,000. The gap above your deposits is $104,000, more than double everything you ever put in. And you did nothing extraordinary. You didn't time the market, didn't pick the winning stock, didn't get a mentor, an inheritance, or one lucky break. You had $200 and 20 years. Now watch the acceleration, because it's only just becoming visible. In year 1, the market paid you all $120. In year 10, about $3,600. In year 20, roughly $14,000 in a single year. You put in $2,400 a year, and the machine adds $14,000. You're almost a passenger now. 30 years. 55. Contributions $72,000. Balance around $452,000. Which means consistency and compounding produced $380,000 you never deposited, never earned at a job, never won. At that same 10% historical average, an average, not a guarantee, the account now generates roughly $45,000 a year without you touching the principal. Call it $3,750 a month from money that started as pocket change. The machine you built is producing something close to a working income, and there are still 10 years left before the traditional retirement age. And the whole journey began with one transfer on a Tuesday evening in an apartment you've long since moved out of. So here's the only question that matters. What do you do this week? This week, in the next 10 minutes, you set up one automatic transfer for an amount that feels almost embarrassingly small. 50, 100, 200. The size matters far less than the automation. Schedule it for the day after payday, so the decision happens once and never again. Don't research for 6 months. Don't wait for January. Overthinking is what kept you out last year and the year before that. 10 minutes, one click, and the machine is running. This month, run the test you've been avoiding, the load-bearing test. Watch what actually happens to your life without that amount. Track the month. If nothing collapses, and it almost never does, you've just proven the money was free to build with. And this quarter, make one structural change. Automate an annual increase, even $25 more per year. You'll never feel it, and the machine will. Notice what's missing from this list. No second job, no rice and beans budget, no moving back home. You're not sacrificing a life. You're redirecting a rounding error. And if 200 still sounds impossible, run the small version. $50 a month. One forgettable subscription, one night out, at the market's historical average over 40 years, comes to roughly $316,000. Not a promise, not a straight line. Some decades will be ugly. But that's the scale of what a meaningless amount does when you give it enough time. The question was never whether the amount is big enough. The question is whether the time gets used or wasted. Because here's where the road ends. 65 years old, 40 years, 480 transfers, $96,000 contributed in total. At that same historical average, the balance stands at roughly $1,265,000. The number from the very first second of this video. $1,169,000 of it was never earned. It grew out of time and your refusal to stop. Out of 480 months that each felt like nothing. Every correction you didn't sell through. Every year that passed without drama. Every Tuesday transfer nobody congratulated you for. All of it stacked. All of it compounding. All of it here, and the numbers were never really the point. There are two people you can be at 65. One spent decades waiting for the amount that finally felt worth starting with. And that moment never came, because the habit of waiting always arrives with it. The other started with whatever was there. Time doesn't wait for the right amount. It runs on whatever you give it. Give it nothing, and it compounds nothing. Give it 200 a month, and it hands you back something no paycheck ever could. The proof that you build things. The choice was never about money. From the outside, 40 years of this looks like luck. From the inside, it's the most ordinary, extraordinary thing a person can do with money. If this video moved something in you, the next one goes deeper into the moment most people break. Why a falling market is secretly the best thing that can happen to a small investor. It's on your screen right now. And if you want a money video like this every week, subscribe. The machine is open. Your move.